Friday edition of Sports Call. Randy Lee alongside Andy Graham, taking your phone calls at 888-9-TIGER-9, 334-887-3401. Those phone calls will come in on the other side because we want to welcome in a very special guest, Phil Savage, the executive director of Reese's Senior Bowl, along with a lot of other things. Phil, thanks for being on the line with us.
No, you're welcome. Thanks for reaching out to me, and we appreciate the support of our game down here in Mobile.
You know, it's one of those games that they try to replicate, but I think it's hard to do that. This Senior Bowl is the premier all-star game, and just talk about that a little bit, Phil.
Well, it's a game that's been in existence now for 65 years, and obviously the affiliation with the NFL in terms of having the coaching staff. This year the Falcons with the North, the Jaguars with the South is a great attraction to 100-plus players across the country. They're looking to compete against the best and try to raise their draft stock, get a head start on the pre-draft evaluation period in terms of knocking out a bunch of interviews here with, the vast majority of the teams. But we've had an exceptional week. It started this past weekend. The players were welcome to Mobile on Sunday night. They hit the practice field on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Went into our local schools and several children's hospitals yesterday. We had a nice banquet last night with Aeneas Williams, who's a finalist for the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and now we're all just waiting for kickoff tomorrow.
Great weekend, and Phil, you've got a GM background. Can you give us just some specifics that, the GMs, the coaches, and everyone are looking forward to talking to these kids, I know, but some specifics you're looking for with the kids this week?
Sure. When you're in player personnel with one of the NFL teams and you go in to the schools during the fall, for example, if you go to Auburn or Georgia or even Alabama, oftentimes you do not get a chance to meet the player. You only see his videotapes and talk to the staff members and the coaches about his background, his personality. So the Senior Bowl represents the first chance there is to actually get in front of these players and put a name with a face and a personality with a profile or scouting report. So the players have a great chance to make a first impression on the clubs, and that's something that's really important to the teams in terms of trying to determine whether this player's background, his personality, his ability to learn, all those sorts of things will fit in with what they're looking for within their own locker room.
Phil Savage, the executive director of the Reese's Senior Bowl, on the line with us. And we got three players from Auburn there, Phil. And D. Ford seems to be turning a lot of heads this week, it seems like.
Yeah, I think of all the players that have helped themselves the most, I think D. Ford turned a lot of heads. I really do feel that way based on building off the momentum from really the midseason when he re-entered the lineup after the injury, and then what he accomplished against Alabama, Florida State, and he's just kept that momentum going to the point where he really had an excellent week racing off the corner as an edge rusher. And, that was a theme to me that evolved and emerged this week, is that we had a number of long-armed, tall corners that are really needed to try to defend those back shoulder fades and down the red zone like we saw Richard Sherman do for the Seahawks Sunday night. But then the other way to play modern defenses, to have people that can get after the quarterback. And I think that D. Ford has certainly elevated his stock. And, I wouldn't be surprised to now see him and hear his name in the conversation for the first round.
Another guy from Auburn that, was kind of the heart and soul of that team this year was Jay Prosh, and a guy that, the coaching staff and the players just seem to rave about, and but plays a position that seems to be a dying breed in the NFL at fullback. How does he fit in at the next level, do you think?
Well, he's definitely a classic fullback, a throwback type of player as a lead blocker. For an I formation tailback, but I think Jay's had a nice week. You're right. Even the best fullbacks nowadays won't go in the draft until the 4th or 5th round. I do think he'll be selected by a team that's interested in having a lead blocker like Jay. And, it's interesting because in 2012, he came to Auburn because they were going to a pro-style system, and it was closer to home, where his mother was ill, of course, and she subsequently passed away. unfortunately. But then Gus Malzahn comes back, and he's going to put in his version of the spread option, and people really wondered where Jay would fit in. And they created a very productive role for him as not only a lead blocker on direct downhill runs, but also as almost like an extra guard on those pulls going to the corner and things like that. So he did a great job. Of course, he's from the Mobile area, UMS Wright, and people were very proud back to the Port City.
We've got Phil Savage, the executive director of the Reese Senior Bowl, on with us, and hopefully we're still on the line now. And Phil, you still there with us? And we're continuing to try to get him back up and running, but you know,
I can hear you guys.
Okay, good to have you back. And Phil, one more player from Auburn that we've still got is Cody Parkey that's down there. And your thoughts on Cody this week?
Well, Cody was voted by a panel of NFL scouts as the specialist of the week based on the practices. He fortunately got a chance to kick with the wind on Wednesday when it got a little blustery down here. But Cody, of course, was a great weapon for Auburn in terms of those touchbacks, and obviously made some big field goals during his career there. And of course, Auburn did have a fourth player here, Chris Davis, and you know he's most noted for the kick six play. Forever be remembered in this state, but he really has competed hard as a cover corner. I think people have acknowledged the fact that he is a skilled returner. He averaged 22 yards a punt return this year, and I thought he really competed and tried to show that he is capable of playing man-to-man because, like I said earlier, we had a lot of tall corners here, all over 6'1", 6'2". We even had a 6'3" corner here from Utah, Keith McGill. And here's Chris Davis at a shade under 5'10", and he's got to show the ability to play over slot. But I think as a backup corner projection in the NFL and a kick and punt returner, he has a definite good chance to make a team next year.
Phil, another one of your jobs, and I want to say I think you do a tremendous job as color analyst of the Alabama Crimson Tide, and have enjoyed hearing you and Eli throughout the year. Even though I'm an Auburn fan, we kind of moonlight as radio broadcasters ourselves, and I do some color, and you do a tremendous job. But A.J. McCarron opting out of this Senior Bowl, were you surprised with that? And just talk about that a bit.
Just going back, a solid year when C.J. Mosley, who's also from Mobile, elected to go back for his senior year, and then, of course, A.J. was going to be back for the 2013 season. I think the feeling amongst our Reese's Senior Bowl staff was that, hey, we've got a chance to really have a great feature next year with two Mobilians of prominence in terms of two team captains from Alabama. But ultimately, as the season unfolded, with CJ being rated so high in terms of potentially going in the top 15 of the first round, I think some people have at least an understanding that, hey, the risk is too great. There's certainly some accommodations and some things that we could have done differently in terms of, having an extra linebacker, taking some reps off of him. But it would have been nice to have had him here and AJ because we had three other Mobilians. We mentioned Jay Prosh, but then Jimmy Ward from Northern Illinois prepped here at Davidson, and Solomon Patton from Murphy ended up at Florida. So it would have been a really nice reflection on our city had we had all five Mobilians in the game. And with AJ, hey, there's different reasons for different players opting out of this game. And, I think there's been some mixed signals in terms of did he have an injury? Was he 100% healthy? Was it the agent's choice? Was it AJ's decision himself? I think there's some questions out there that these NFL teams are going to try to answer once they end up assembling in Indianapolis at the Combine. But with AJ, he had a great career at Alabama, fabulous record, led Bama to 2 national titles. But as Aeneas Williams addressed the audience last night, he said, the pair of shoes that you've worn to get to this point is going to require a different pair of shoes to go on and have future success in the NFL. And that really is what this recent Senior Bowl is all about. It's a bridge. It's a rite of passage for many players going from college to pro. And anytime someone has an affiliation with the Gulf Coast, or specifically Mobile, it's a great thing for the city and the game. And I think the individual, because usually they get quite a tribute when they come back to town.
Great weather down there most of the time as well, and we've been down to Ladd Stadium, and it is a beautiful place. One last question, Phil. Your thoughts on this quarterback class as a whole?
Well, of course, the three juniors are getting most of the hype right now in terms of Blake Bortles from UCF, Johnny Manziel from A&M, and then, of course, Teddy Bridgewater from Louisville. But, I think obviously they're all going to go high, but, in some ways, I don't know that the NFL teams have really been able to dig into all three like they have a Derek Carr from Fresno or, a Jimmy Garoppolo from Eastern Illinois who is here. I mean, when you are a senior, you've been being evaluated for the last 9 months. These juniors that are just declaring in the last couple weeks only are going to face the judge and jury here over the next 4 months. So everybody's got to play catch up on these junior quarterbacks in particular. I think the race or the fight is on to see who the 4th, 5th, and 6th quarterbacks are going to be in the draft. And, generally speaking, that means someone near the end of the first round, certainly the top of the second round, on into the third round for those 4th, 5th, and 6th quarterbacks. And to me, Derek Carr and Jimmy Garoppolo were the two players that really took a step forward in terms of putting their name in the hat for those different positions.
Phil, we really appreciate you being a part of the program. And what time will everything start and kick off tomorrow?
So we have a nice pregame show tomorrow. We honor a number of veterans from World War II and Korea. And then our kickoff is at 3 o'clock Central on the NFL Network. Go to SeniorBowl.com. You can follow me on Twitter at SeniorBowlPhil. And if you're interested in the draft at all, those are two great places to really keep up with the players and get a behind the scenes at what really goes on with the NFL draft.
Well, we'll be doing that for sure. And we appreciate you being a part of the program this afternoon.